Second concept, here we go. Second thing you got to do is you got to be able to create a fresh vision. Someone say a fresh vision. Now again, when we deal with leadership, and I've been talking about vision for years, when I deal with leadership, most people understand that you must have a vision. Got to have a vision. If you don't have a vision, you might as well give up leadership. Because the foundation of great leadership is vision. Someone say vision. And when I define vision, here goes a good definition. I define vision as a clear, concise, compelling picture or image of your future. So a vision is something that's clear, it's concise, it's a picture or image of my future. And watch this, it's something that I am passionate about. Are y'all still here? But the other aspect of vision and relationship to reformation, to change and rebuilding is you have to have an ability to come into a chaotic situation and create vision that changes the situation. See, a lot of people can come into a successful thing and say, I have vision. But my question is, can you go into some of the worst companies, the worst organizations, and the worst communities and create a vision that transforms? Because if we're rebuilding, that means something is being destroyed. If we're dealing with change, that means that there's something that's going to have to go, there's something that's going to have to stay, and in order to do that, we got to be able to create the vision for what we're rebuilding, what we're reforming, and what we're changing. So when we deal with this concept of vision, not only should you have a vision, but now the question is, can you go into a community, can you go into an organization, can you go into a third world country, and can you create a vision that ultimately makes it better and ultimately makes a lasting impact in that space? That's the question. Why? Because when you think about leaders who have rebuilt, when you think about leaders that have changed things, when you think about leaders that have brought reformation, reform, restructure, realign, a new way of doing things, you will find that they had vision. They had an ability to assess, to think about, and create a fresh vision that inspired people, that moved people, and made something better. And the reason they understood this concept of vision is because they have learned that vision is the foundation for success. If you're going to be successful in your career, if you're going to be successful in your personal life, if you're going to be successful as a leader, it all begins with a vision. I tell people all the time, you will only go as far as what you can see. So the more you can see, the farther you will go. It's why Gandhi says, and I quote, he says, be the change that you wish to see in the world. Notice what he says. Be the change that you wish to, someone say, see. He has to see it. I can't create the change until I first see it. So based on what you see, he says, become that. So if I'm going to create change in the world, I must first see. Someone say, see. See. Woodrow Wilson says, and I quote, no man or woman that does not see visions will ever realize any high hope or undertake any high enterprise. He said, if you want to do big things, if you want to do something incredible, he said, you must have a vision. Someone say vision. Brian Tracy, one of the most respected motivational speakers in the country, he says vision was the most identifiable leadership quality of leadership after 33,000 studies. 33,000 studies of leadership, according to Brian Tracy, he said vision was the most identifiable, which means if I'm going to be an effective leader of the 21st century, I must have a vision. I must have a vision, and I must know how to come into a chaotic situation and create a vision that inspires people, that moves people, and enables me to rebuild, to reform, and ultimately bring change. Say change. Here goes my story. I love this story. For some of you may have not heard, there's a ministry. It's international, and it's just everywhere. It's called Hillsong. Anybody ever heard of Hillsong? Raise your hand. Hillsong. Okay, so a lot of people know about Hillsong. It's a phenomenal story. It's a phenomenal movement in the Christianity sector, and it's a phenomenal movement because 33 years ago there was a local pastor that had a church in Australia. He was in Australia, not even in America. He was in Australia, and he had a small church, but he had a big vision. Someone say small. But big vision. Say small, but big vision. So he has a small church, but he has this big vision. And so what he begins to do, man, I get inspired here, man. So what he begins to do is begins to write out the vision. And the vision is not based on his current situation. So you should never allow the vision to be based on where you are. The vision shall move you. It shall challenge you. That's what it should do. And so he begins to write out the vision. He begins to write it out. I mean, it's big. It's audacious. He's writing out this vision in Australia to be across the entire world. Writes out this vision. So I'm in New York, and I had the opportunity to visit one of his many churches across the world. And the guy gets up, and he begins to put the vision statement on the screen. And he says, 30 years ago, this man in Australia wrote out a vision that was big. He dared to believe something that was bigger than him. He didn't know how it was going to happen, but he believed it could actually happen. Can you write a vision that's so big that you don't know how it's going to happen, but you know it's going to happen? Can you envision something in your life that's big, so big, you don't know how, but it can happen? Whew, man, I hope you're catching it. So he writes it down. And 30 years later, as this young man who's about 35 years of age, who was probably about 2 years old when this man started writing the vision, stands up as one of the leaders of this vision, and he talks about how it was written 30 years ago and it's actually become a reality today. 30 years, something was written and it's become a reality today. Oh, I'm in something right now. How many of you today are sitting with a vision for generations 30 and 50 years down the line? Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Give yourselves a round of applause. This is where he's at. He had a vision 30 and 50 years down the line, and the vision is flourishing, and the vision is impactful, and the vision is making an impact because there was a point in his life where he was in your seat, he was in your chairs, and although his situation didn't coincide with where his future was, he dared to write it down. He dared to look at the haters and say, it's still going to happen. He dared to look at the bad experience, it's still going to happen. He dared to look at his finances, it's still going to happen. He dared to look at his abuse, it's still going to happen. He dared to look at the people that said he was stupid, it's still going to happen. He dared to look at fear, it's still going to happen. He dared to look at his struggle, it's still going to happen. He dared to look at something that was contrary to what was on the inside of his mind and believed it enough to happen that he wrote it down. So my question today is this question: what's your vision? I'm not talking about the vision your mom gave you. What's your vision? I'm not talking about the vision your father gave you. What's your vision? And for those of you who say, I don't know what my vision is, someone say, get a vision. Get a vision. Because inside of you is a vision to change the world. Inside of you is a vision to make our community, our nation, and our world a better place. One speaker once says, and I quote, he says that every time a child is born, a solution is brought into the world. Meaning when you were born, you already came with a solution. The problem is we have a lot of problems in the world today because not enough people have discovered the solution on the inside. What would happen if we all discovered our solutions to problems in the world? We don't ever know what. Maybe we have a cure for diseases. Maybe we have help a third world country. Maybe we change some policies in the White House. Who knows what can happen if we would find the solution? Because the reality is you were born to make the world a better place. If you ever study purpose, I'm out of my notes, but here we go. If you ever study purpose, your purpose is to give. The reason you were born is to give. But we can't give at the level we're supposed to give if we don't discover what's on the inside to give. So I got to find my strength. I got to find my vision. I got to find my dream. I got to find my cause. What matters to you? What do you care about? Another one of my mentors says, and I quote, and he says, the thing that irritates you most is the thing you're called to solve. So whatever gets on your last nerves, maybe you have the solution. That's why it gets on your nerves. That's why I tell people all the time, well, they don't need to be wearing that. They don't need to be doing this. Why their hair look like that? Why are they acting like this? I can't stand people who pick their nails. All that kind of stuff. Maybe you're the one to help them in a loving way.